21, 12121 is episode 156, Loan Refinancing, Part 1. This is 39.6 Facebook and YouTube Live Finance Show, a show that teaches high earners like yourselves how to make your money work for you so you don't have to work for your money. We talk general investing, taxes, real estate, syndications, Airbnb, paying for college, paying for childcare, and even the car you drive. Today's episode, student loan refinancing. I actually don't think I've ever done a talk on student loan refinancing. And student loans is like the only thing that so many people actually care about when it comes to finances, especially for young physicians. So here we go. Jim, White Coat Investor, says, you shouldn't keep your student loans around like a pet. Well, we've been keeping our student loans around like pets, like a whole bunch of pets. We finished training over 5 years ago, and at that time, and we stuck to our plan, it was to refinance the high interest rate loans to lower interest rates, but still keep them on long payment plans, like 20 to 25 years. So I have some loans, federal loans, that are still federal loans because I was able to get them on extended repayment plans, 25-year plans, and they're variable rates. And right now they're like 2.2, 2.4%. And my wife has some that she consolidated in med school that were locked in at like 4%, or maybe a little bit more than that. But when we refinanced the rest of our loans, which were like 6.8%, we refinanced down to like 5% with 20 years. And why was that? So at the beginning, we were broke, super broke, and I really value liquidity. And getting longer terms decrease the monthly payments, and it keeps our debt to income ratios really low. When you keep your debt to income ratio low, you have a lot more credit for when you're trying to purchase something. Like if you're trying to buy an investment property, your student loan payments aren't using up a big chunk of your income. Like when I first started, my income was a fraction of what it is now. And if I had refinanced to a 5-year term, even though the interest rate would have been a lot lower, it would have used up a high percentage of my income. It would have been like, let's say, 25% of my monthly income would have been my mortgage payment, well, including property tax. So without property tax, it would still be pushing 20% maybe. Okay, that's just of my income alone. And my wife would have her income as well. So of our household income, it was not very high. But we like to buy houses with only one person's name on them as on the mortgage. And that's to maximize the amount of credit that we each independently have to buy more properties. So if we could buy a property with just my name without her name on it, that would leave her name open to buy another property and so on. So keeping your debt to income ratios really low for your other expenses, like house, car, etc. We don't have any car payments. By keeping that really low, it gives you more room to have more credit for the big purchases that really matter if you're trying to buy a investment property. Okay, so those are the multiple reasons why we did not do 5-year refinances. Like a lot of people coming out of training, refi to 5 years. If you're not going to PSLF, get the interest rate as low as possible and boom, 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 hammer it out. Frankly, honestly, I think that's a pretty dangerous thing for most doctors to do right out of training because you're broke, you have no savings. I mean, maybe do 10 years and that way your monthly payments just aren't too high. And if you get into trouble, they're a lot more sustainable. I also liked having small payments because then it's more likely that my investments would be able to sustain the payments of our student loans at a sooner time point. Okay. Well, we did that for 5 years, and I've actually refinanced like every year or 2 years since then. So we refinanced multiple times. The first time we refinanced with like, I think my wife had maybe 3 different refinance companies and I had a couple. And why was that? We had batched up different loans into small groups. I didn't want to have like one gigantic refinanced loan with like $250,000 because a lot of the refinance companies at that time were not refinancing loans that big. So if a company had come into the game and started offering new lower rates, but they cut it off at like $200,000 and my loan was $250,000, I wouldn't be able to get in and refinance with them. So it gave me more flexibility. It was a little bit of a headache because we had to pay all these different places, but once you set up the auto pay, it's no big deal. Okay, we also got to capitalize on bonuses from all these different companies. So we made like $2,000 or so in bonuses. But that was the first year. Then a couple of years later, they had gone cheaper, and these were all fixed rates because we were planning on doing this for 20 years, and a fixed rate would basically lock that in. Variable rate is definitely more reasonable when you're looking at really short time periods. And so anyway, we refinanced multiple times. Now, we kept them on those long payment periods, but recently, interest rates have been super low. And last year, because of COVID, we've been banking up all this cash. We just haven't deployed as much cash into real estate assets as we have done in the past prior years. So now we have a ton of liquidity, and we also have a much bigger net worth. We're far from being broke. We could pay for all of our loans now in cash. We could just pay it off and be done with it. And so now we're in a completely different position. You can also look at different, I have an Excel spreadsheet. I'm not going to show it today, but when I talked about 15 versus 30 and investing the difference, if you do the longest term, even though it's a higher interest rate and you invest the difference, over the long run, you still come out ahead, but it takes time. Over about 10 years, it ends up being no difference. But in the first few years, obviously, if you do the lower interest rate, it makes a significant difference. But as you go out down the long road, having more money invested in higher return assets will give you a longer, higher return. Okay. But now the delta between a 5-year term and a 20-year term is gigantic. So this makes it a lot more appealing to get to a shorter term. And again, we have a ton of liquidity. And I looked at the difference in the payments, and at the end of the day, real estate is not like investing in the stock market. If you got $100, you can't just invest that in real estate unless you're talking about REITs. You have to bunch up enough cash to put it into a syndication or something. And we usually investing at least $100,000 now. So unless the difference is going to be $100,000 a year, it's not going to really impact our ability to invest in a deal. Okay, so I live in Texas, and there's a company called Brazos, which I had not actually heard about until last year. I think I might have heard about it. I found out about it through White Coat Investor, either through his page or through podcast or something. I had somehow this completely passed me by, but this is actually a nonprofit in Texas, and it's for Texas residents only. So you can actually get really good rates here. And when we refinanced last year with Brazos, or it was late 2019, we had refinanced basically all of our loans except for some small federal loans, which are already at lower rates. And we locked them in at 20 years. And we locked them in at 4.65%, I believe. Okay. Now, they on their webpage list out, and this is something I really like about their page. A lot of other pages, they just say, oh, our rates are, let's say here, 2.7% to 4.1% for fixed rate, and 1.92 to 4.54 for variable. And you have to apply to figure out the breakdown of all of this. I would like it if there was one web page where people could post their actual terms that they got posted. So, and and what their loan to value ratios or debt to income ratios are, and their loan balances and their income, so that we can figure out how they're underwriting these, so that I don't have to apply to like 10 different things to find out where the best rates are. But what they do, which is really nice, on their page, they tell you, choose your credit score, and based on your credit score, it will change the numbers. And so you can actually see what the different rates are, okay, and for fixed and for variable. So let's pretend you're at the bottom here at 720 to 745, and notice that 720 is the bottom. So they're actually pretty particular about who they will take. A lot of people they will probably not take, because 720 is a pretty high score. I just saw this like yesterday after I did my application like last week. This is really awesome. Most websites, you won't get this clarity before you apply. But I think this is because this is a nonprofit, and they don't mind being very direct and upfront with you. We need very qualified people, and their highest tier starts at 824. That is nuts. I've never seen that. I have never once not been able to get the best rate on any loan I have ever applied for. Not that I have perfect credit, but I mean, they're usually like 760 or higher is like, or 740 or higher is like top tier. Here, 720 is the bottom, okay? And they use Transunion. I think Transunion numbers might be a little bit higher than the others, but they use Transunion. So you can see it right here on the variable rate, 5 years, 1.92%. And a number of different companies are at 1.9-ish at their 5-year variable term, okay? But if you go to 7 years, it doubles. That is a gigantic delta, 2%, go from 5 to 7. Now it's weird. From at a 7-year to a 10, it goes back down to 3.74, but then it goes back up to 4.04 at 15 years. I don't know if this is a function of some form of an inverted yield curve, but that's basically what an inverted yield curve will look like. It'll go up and it'll go back down, but then it goes back up here. Something's weird about 7 years. I don't know. But 2% to 4% is a gigantic spread, okay? 4 to 4.5, for example, not nearly as significant, going from 15 to 20, and definitely going from like 10 to 15, 3.7 to 4.0, 0.3% spreads. It's not that big a deal to get excited about. So if I'm going to get a shorter term, I want it to be worth it, worth the extra cash flow, worth the negative liquidity. Okay, now variable rates are here based on the 1 month LIBOR. Right now, the 1 month LIBOR, I guess, is 0.14%. Okay, and so these are all a delta above that. So basically, what it looks like they're doing is they're saying that for a 5-year variable term, it will be 1.78 plus whatever that 1 month LIBOR is. So there's a delta. Okay, and that delta will be constant, but the LIBOR will vary. So every so often, I don't know actually how often it will vary, every month, every quarter, every year, whatever it is. But there's also a cap, I think. You have to go through the loan terms to actually know what that is. But gigantic difference between 5 years and everything else. If you go look at the fixed rate, 2.7% at a fix is pretty good. And you can see 2.7, 3.3, 3.5, 3.7, and 4.1. These numbers here are assuming that you're doing auto pay to get this 0.25% discount. But look what happens if you choose from the top tier, which is 824 or higher, and go down to the next one down, which is 798 to 823. The 5-year goes up to 3.63% instead of 1.9%. That's like almost twice the interest, okay? So I actually did my application. I did it actually like 2 weeks ago. And then I've been sitting waiting to find out what's going on. I didn't hear anything because I just didn't check my messages. Or I thought it was a spam call. Anyway, call them, say what's going on. I put my app like 2 weeks ago. And then they're like, your credit's frozen, which of course, because I froze my credit and I forgot that I had to unfreeze it because I just wasn't paying attention. I haven't done this in a while. So then I logged into Transunion, logged in, unfroze. It takes like literally less than a minute to do this. Then it went through the pre-approval process, like right then and there, took me through the process. It's you're pre-approved. And what did it do? It showed me my rates. And these were the rates I got. I was like 3.63, that's not 1.89. And I was like, did the interest rates, did the LIBOR just suddenly like go up a whole bunch in the week that I was not paying attention? I looked at the fixed rates like 2.9%. Well, that doesn't make sense. The fixed rate 5 years is lower than the variable. It's really odd to me. I don't honestly know why that is. And the same thing, the 7 years, 3.5 versus 4.0. But yeah, these variable rates are higher than the fixed rates. So that's very interesting how that ends up working out. I don't know if that's a mistake, but that's what it says. So I was like, this sucks. It's like, why did I get this super high rate compared to 1.9%? This is because I didn't know about this. And then I go log into the portal thing and I check my insurance, not my credit score. Guess what? My credit score was 823 from TransUnion. So this is like getting like, felt like being in like high school and getting like an 89.7%, right? Like in our high school, we got pluses and minuses, like we got like a B plus, B minus, but when it came to your grade point average, B plus to B minus was the same. It went in as a 3, and an A minus to an A plus was a 4. So if you got like an 89.7%, you got a B or a B plus, and you brought your GPA down. It's just silly. These things that we thought mattered in life back then. But yeah, I got an 823. It's like, well, this actually really sucks because that's twice the interest. And I have $250,000 in loans I want to refinance. $250,000 and 2% on that is $5,000 a year. That's like, yeah, $400 a month in extra interest. And this is on the same 5-year term. So that's an expensive 1 point on my credit score. So I was kind of upset about that. I was like, how could I possibly, I called them up. They're like, yeah, your score is 823 and the top tier says 824. I was like, man, I don't have good enough credit for you guys. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay 4% when somebody else I know I can get cheaper, or 3.6%. So then I start shopping around. I went to Splash. I think my wife had one of her loans with Splash at one point. So I went to Splash and then I did my application there. I think I called them and they said they used TransUnion, so I didn't need to unlock anything else. So I applied to Splash. Didn't take very long. And let's see, I'm going to pull up the rates I got here and then split this screen. Okay. So these were the terms that I got. I got 2.19%, and that's with the 0.25% discount for auto pay. So it was really going to be like 2.4%. And so I was like, that's not the 1.9% that's being advertised, or the 1.89 at 5% on a 5-year variable. So I was like, that's a lot better than the 3.6%, but I really want to get down to the 1.9 because I know you're offering 1.9, and it's like, I'm probably good enough for you guys. I mean, my credit score is 823. That's probably good enough for this for-profit company that takes in people with a lot lower interest, lower credit scores than I do. So I called them up on the phone. And I talked to some lady, I think her name was Samantha. I was like, Samantha, can you please help me out? I have no idea why I'm not qualifying for your best terms. Can you possibly look at my application? She's like, well, it's based on your credit score and your debt to income ratio, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm familiar with this entire underwriting process. What are the things you're looking for, because they don't tell you what their terms are for underwriting. And she was like, you need a debt to income ratio of less than 20%. You need a credit score. I don't know what it was. I mean, I was well above their cutoff for the credit score. And so like, those were the two main things. And I was like, because, they ask you to put in like your mortgage payment, and they calculate what they calculate between your interest rate and your a loan balance, and based on what terms you're looking at, it'll calculate what you qualify for. Okay, I can get to my wife's a little bit later, but when my wife did Brazos, she didn't even qualify for a 5-year term because the debt to income ratio was too high. So she's like, it has to be less than 20%. And I was like, mine is less than 10% using a 5%, even using a 5-year. So I was like way under the ratios, and my credit score was well over 800. She's like, I don't really know. I don't know why you're not getting it. She's like, I'm going to make a call and see if I can talk to somebody in underwriting. She's like, because it really gets underwritten by some outside company, and she doesn't know. I guess she's like, they don't tell us what things they are. I was like, well, if you can't figure out why, I mean, I don't know how, if my credit score was high enough, then I don't know how somebody else could. Is it just because my balance was too high? I don't know. Because $250,000 is a lot. And some places maybe they only offer the particular interest rate to certain balances. I don't know. So then I was like, okay, well, Splash was better, but not where I wanted to be at. Because I had a target. I knew I wanted to be at 1.9%. So I looked on one of the doctor's pages, probably, I think this was I looked on Physician on Fire's page. I was like, okay, Laurel Road will be the next one I'm going to try. So I go to Laurel Road. I do the application there. Didn't take too long. It's a lot easier now that I only have basically one loan that I'm trying to refinance. I used to have like 8 different loans from Navient, and then I had a few loans somewhere else. It was just a pain typing in every single loan. Now it's like I have one big loan, and then I have like $10,000 at Navient that are still federal loans that I'm just letting them ride because they're from, I think some of them might actually be from undergrad. So they're like 20 years old. And so they actually kind of prop up my credit score because it's super long history on those. Brings up your average age of credit. Okay. So I then went to Laurel Road, and I did that application, and okay, I went through the whole process there, and I'll show you what I got to. All right, there we go. So I ended up actually qualifying for their best rate, and I ended up sealing the deal, or at least I got to the part where I signed off on it. It hasn't actually been dispersed yet. I may run another application or two tomorrow just to see, because there were some Laurel Road's bonus. It's only like $300. And frankly, I applied to them a long time ago. I don't know if I'm still going to get that bonus. I saw a bonus on Credible for like $1,000. And if I don't have an account there already, $1,000 would be a nice bonus if I'm going to have to change companies. I wanted to stay at Brazos just because it's already there, and Firstmark is the servicer, and it's just a lot cleaner if the money's going from Firstmark and getting sent to Firstmark. Like I know it's like going to be done smoothly, cleanly, and this I don't need to make a new login and a new password because I just hate having so many accounts. But if I'm going to make a new one, I might as well. And if I can get $1,000 as opposed to like $300, it sounds good. But so yeah, I did Laurel Road. I got their best rates. I don't have them all printed out here, but got me 2.14%. But that's 2.14% without the 0.25% discount. So it actually goes down to 1.9%. Okay, so you can see that we have like, or I have like $236,000 on this one loan. So between this and my federal loans, it's like $250,000. If anybody actually knows out there, I actually haven't figured this out, but I have my federal loans from Navient, but I'm still paying interest on them like at 2 or 2.5%. I don't know what I need to have qualified for the 0% interest rate. So if you know, let me know, because I'm not getting 0% interest. I'm paying the interest. Granted, it's like 2% on like $10,000. So it's like less than $20 a month. It's not a big deal, but it's like a Netflix subscription. Okay, so what is it? So I got 2.14% here, so it'll be like 1.9% at the end of the day. Monthly payments $4,100. My monthly payment used to be like $1,600. So this is going to be like a $2,500 a month increase on my student loans, and times 12, that's only like $30,000. That's not going to impact my ability to do a real estate deal or not do a real estate deal. And that was one of the key reasons why I'll pay the extra, because it's not going to inhibit my ability to invest in the things I want to. It's just a little bit less cash that I'm going to have. Maybe over the course of like a few years, I might miss out on like one deal. But the amount of tax savings or interest savings is substantial, going down from like 4.65 to 2.14% or 1.9%. You're looking at a 2.7% difference on $250,000. So 2,500 times 2.7 is going to be 5,000. That's going to be over almost $7,000 a year in interest savings. And that savings is an actual savings. What often people forget about is that, on your income, you have to pay tax on that. But when you're paying down debt, you're using after-tax money, you don't pay taxes on your interest. My point is, paying down debt, actually, you can't compare interest rate to interest rate, because some people say, well, I can do 7% on the market, and my student loans are only 4%. Yes, but if your 7% is going to be taxed, okay, let's pretend you're doing like a loan to somebody at 7%, and you're paying ordinary income tax at 7%. That 7% would get reduced by tax of 37% at the top tax bracket. You're only going to be making 4.3% on that instead of 7. And so if you're paying down debt, even if it's only like a 4% interest rate, it's effectively getting you like a 6 to 7% return on your money, because if you're out of tax shelters, you're paying down that interest and you don't have to pay tax on the interest that you're paying. It doesn't, basically it means your interest rate that you're paying down debt at, you can increase that to cancel out the effect that it's post-tax money. That's not really the best explanation I can do, but it's not apples to apples if you're comparing interest rate on your debt to how much you can earn on an investment, okay? Because there's no tax when you're paying debt down. So saving 2%, 2.5% is actually pretty powerful once you adjust it for our tax situation. So that's it makes sense for us financially now in our position. Probably not going to pay it faster than it needs to be paid, unless for some reason the interest rates go through the roof. However, if that happens, then that might also mean that there's other opportunities that might be really high in comparison. But I mean, if it floats up to like 6%, gosh, 6% on debt is pretty high. And again, that's like almost like 10% returns if you're considering how much you'd have to make in a taxable account with a bond investment. So because you have to correct it for the tax liability of 37%, or 40% with the new tax laws if they change back to like 39.6%. Okay, so that's where we are. I took care of mine, at least for now. Again, I might reapply to a couple things tomorrow and then just call it after those other ones are done. see if I can get a bigger bonus. I don't like to spend forever on this. When I did this the first year, we spent way too many hours because of all the different loans. Now it's pretty streamlined, and it's a waste of time if you just spend more and more and more time just chasing pennies here. But I'll probably do a couple more tomorrow and then see what happens. And if I get $1,000 bonus at the same rate, I'll do it. I'll just call them up and say, cancel the disbursement. I'm going to go somewhere else, but otherwise I'll let it happen. And this will be taken care of and it'll be paid. They're going to send the check, they say, within 7 days, and it should post within a week or two after that. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to get this extra check back from them because it'll pay over. Like I gave them a 30-day payoff quote, but it's probably going to pay in less than 30 days. That's the one thing I really don't like about refinancing is every time you do it, like there's no easy way to do it. So you're just paying off the exact amount on a particular day. It just pays off whenever it does. And then there's this extra money and then you end up getting this check back. And I'm like, I don't want the check, just pay down the loan some. All right. I hit 2 buttons there. Okay. So that was my refinance talk for episode. Oh, sorry. Turn that thing off. Okay. That's my first refinancing talk. I'm going to do another one maybe tomorrow or Saturday or something. We talk about my wife's loan. So that goes into a few other issues that came along, and we're not done with hers yet. But I covered a bunch of topics here. I hope this was helpful for some people. And again, this is not formal financial, professional financial, accounting, legal, anything advice. Simply my entertainment, hopefully yours. Please consult with any financial professionals before making your own decisions. Like Student Loan Planner, I have no affiliation with him, but Travis is a good guy and knows his stuff. Super helpful for people with this stuff. All right. Talk to y'all soon.